What Did You Do with My Old Heart? By Deviant Duncan. Tagged with slight body horror, songfic, and angst with a hopeful ending. Thomas was going through a major breakup. As a result, Patton was hurting. He ached all over as if he'd been run over by a tractor. He felt like he was coming down with the flu or something. He didn't show up for videos anymore, not wanting to scare Thomas. As it was, he rarely left his room when the others were out. He would make food, sure, but for the most part he stayed in his room. He didn't want the others to see him like this. Standing in front of his full-length mirror, he stared at the large crack going across his chest. It pulsed in time with Thomas's heartbeat, a blue light emanating from it. He could feel others forming on his back, and could see them working their way across his shoulders, down his legs, even creeping up his neck. Grabbing his clothes, he threw them on and made sure to hide as many of the glowing, pulsing cracks as he possibly could. Once that was done, he searched the mindscape until he found the rest of the sides. Roman and Remus were having an adventure together in the imagination. Logan and Virgil were curled up in Virgil's room for some reason Patton was unaware of, and Janice was in his room. He liked to know where everyone was, just in case they needed him for something. As he was puttering around his room, a knock sounded at his door. He went through the process of searching again, wondering who was there. None of the sides were right outside his room. He looked through the peephole, only to find Thomas staring back at him. He pulled away, back thumping into the pillar at the entrance to the kitchen. "Why is he here?" he whispered to himself as he attempted to find a piece of cloth to cover his face. The cracks had gone down over the 2 weeks since the breakup, but they weren't gone entirely, and the ones on his face were quite prominent. "Patton? Are you in there?" Thomas called through the door. Patton finally picked up a blanket that was resting on the couch and wrapped it around his head. He took a few deep breaths and opened the door. "Hey, Thomas, what are you doing here?" Thomas entered, gathering Patton into his arms as he did so. "Hello, my old heart," he said, voice soft, as he held Patton close, hand cradling his head close to his chest, other arm wrapped tightly around his waist as his fingers rested just inches from the opening of a crack. Patton didn't know what to do with himself as he was pulled into a dad hug that rivaled his own. Slowly he melted into it, arms coming up to wrap loosely around Thomas's waist. "Hello, Thomas." His voice was quiet, almost afraid to break the atmosphere. Thomas pulled back after a while, hands coming up to cup Patton's cheeks and cradle his head. "How have you been?" Patton pulled away, hiding his face behind the blanket and moving into the kitchen, as if that was the reason for the distance. "I've been doing okay. Taking some time for myself, you know?" Thomas came up behind him, wrapping his arms around his heart's waist. "You know, I've been so worried about you. You never show up randomly in my apartment anymore. The others are saying you don't come out of your room. You've been so quiet, barely making a sound in here. I was starting to wonder if you had left." Patton whirled around, startled, the blanket falling down and being trapped by Thomas's arms. "No! I would never leave you, Thomas!" Thomas let one hand rise to cup Patton's face, turning it to get a better look at the cracks. Thomas winced. "Did I do that to you?" he asked, voice hesitant. "No." Patton was soft but insistent. "Not on purpose." Thomas nodded. "I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you." How could you know? You're not usually aware of our inner functioning. I've only hidden like this once before. The cracks only appear after a major heartbreak. Usually the smaller heartbreaks just give me cracks in spots I can hide." Thomas looked horrified, fingers digging into Patton's side in his distress. "There are more?" Patton sighed, slipping away from him and walking towards the living room. He undid his cardigan and slipped it from his shoulders, laying it gently across the arm of his couch. He unbuttoned his polo before slipping out of it, cracks on full display. "For some reason, they never go below the navel," he said as he sat on the couch. Thomas followed from the kitchen, sitting next to the now shirtless Patton. He looked at not only the cracks on Patton's chest, but also the scars, both pulsing with a blue light in time to his own heartbeat. "Patton, Patton held up a hand. "I don't need an apology. I know you had no idea about these. You couldn't have. I hid them from you." Thomas took the hand, startling Patton into silence. "Patton, I wasn't going to apologize for not knowing about these. I was going to apologize for not being there with you to heal from them. Nothing is going to last forever. As the scars show, the cracks will heal. For now, how about we get these bandaged?" He stood and held out his free hand for Patton's. Patton took it and stood, rising into Thomas's apartment as he did. The rest of the sides let out a collective sigh of relief. Patton was going to be okay. Thomas was going to be okay. They were going to heal together. Thank you for listening. If you'd like me to support me in making podfic or in writing or basically just continuing on in my creative endeavors, I have a Ko-fi. It will be linked in the description below. Feel free to check it out. There's also some cool prizes there. And I set up a tier system that I'm very proud of. Also, if you enjoy my podfics, consider subscribing. I drop podfics pretty randomly, but I always do whole ones at a time. I don't do them chapter by chapter unless it's like minutes apart. I like to record the whole thing and then put it out all at once. So if you subscribe, then you can make sure that you get to see the next one that I put out.